Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cringe Talk. I'm Matt.
And I'm Dave. I mean, you're not Count Matt from the way you said good evening?
Yeah, it was weird. I'm not used to speaking.
No, that's why we do this.
We haven't done this in a while, so... it's we're not even doing a recent film, David. Today we're going back.
Way back.
40 years?
79, so you do the math.
No, you do it.
No thanks.
40. I'm going to say 38. I'm going to say 38 years.
I got the year right.
We will be reviewing Phantasm, the 1979 horror film
slash
Phantasm
slash science fiction. They put them in the sci-fi bin as well for some odd reason. I don't see how yet.
Yeah,
they do for this one.
David, have you heard of this movie before?
Of course.
Okay, yeah, I've heard of it before, and I actually had no idea what the film was about until
Me too.
But it's the one with the little razor balls.
That's right.
Flying razor balls. That's the only thing that I took away from this film.
I thought it was just one big sphere thing. When I met Don Cascarelli, he's like, "Oh, you want to take a picture of me and my Phantasm?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." Never saw the film, but I love this most recent film. John dies at the end.
Would you like to take a picture with me in the sphere?
In the sphere that you're supposed to know about. I'm like, "Yeah, sure."
Oh. Yeah, I feel like it was one of those movies that I would always see in the video store.
Yeah.
You'd pass by and you'd see it, but it wouldn't capture me.
There is an iconography to this though. Like the villain, the tall man, is a big deal in this film. He's a big deal, and we see him everywhere. We have like the toys of him, and you have like those most recent retro dolls. There's one. Oh, was there one that released of him? I can't remember.
Oh, I don't know. You're into those, not me.
Yeah, I have to look into. I haven't looked into them in a while, but yeah.
They made 4 more sequels to this film
somehow,
and I think he constantly played the tall man.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Don Cascarelli, he wrote and I guess directed
the first one.
Yeah, wrote, directed. He did a lot. He filmed it. He edited the whole thing.
Yes, he did. Yeah.
Just real low budget. When I say low budget, that's still a pretty high budget. $300,000. I mean, that's
he was involved with MGM. He just took the workload. They just allowed him to take the workload. I don't know how they would do that. I don't think they would ever ask of that for anybody.
Well, didn't he do this on his own and then sell it to MGM?
Maybe.
I don't know. I feel like that's probably more how it would work.
I think so. Yeah, he did. They did
first
say
horror film.
Yeah, he did. He did say that it is known that like he does the whole independent like approach where it's like you rent your equipment on the weekend. Well, you pay 1 day rental but use it for the weekend.
Yeah.
So I still do that, but
yeah,
it's the best bargain, right? Yeah, there's no way MGM funded it the whole time. Yeah, so
no, definitely they would have. I'm sure they would have stepped in at some point and been like, "Man, this is a disaster."
Yeah. So they had the distribution. Well, I don't know. For some reason, this film was successful.
Well, over time, I mean, it was not successful at the beginning, and it took them over a year to film this thing.
Oh right, no, I mean like after it was done. It had a successful
following.
Yeah, for some odd reason.
I mean, they just made a sequel to it last year.
No.
Yeah. One of the sequels, the 5th one, came out last year.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like direct sequel, like immediate sequel afterwards. Okay, no, we're good.
Yeah, I forget what it was called. Probably like Phantasm Ravager.
Oh yeah. I did see. I did graze that on IMDb. Yeah.
So. Yeah, he pretty much just cast his friends and other people he had worked with in this film. I think I read that his mother had done some of the special effects. So keeping it in-house, real tight-knit. Was it any surprise to you, David, that this script was never actually completed?
Of course it was no surprise. There's so many plot holes.
Yeah, I mean, over the course of filming, which, like you said, was weekends, for about a year, a lot of the actors would say that the script kept changing. And that they really just kind of filmed it scene by scene.
Just wing it, This will make sense if this happens, and when you put it all together, he obviously edited himself, and I'm like, a lot of this isn't adding up very well.
Well, he went through. I mean, the ending to this film was one of maybe 4 or 5 different endings that he shot,
probably.
And well, no, it was.
Oh yeah.
And the one he chose, I wonder how bad the other ones were, but
no idea.
I think I'm showing my hand a little bit too much about what I thought about this film.
Same here.
And then, so not only a year to make the film, then another 8 months to edit it.
Mm-hmm.
And critical reception of this film, David. Not great.
That which I thought merited that in that regard. I don't know why. I don't see how the cult. I'm sorry for those who love this film, and if you're listening to the podcast because you like the film, we're not going to really talk so much praise for it.
Well, I'm going to try to find some gold nuggets in here.
We'll try.
David, are you interested in seeing the original director's cut, the 3-hour long opus?
I mean, it is revealed, I think, in the next one. I think they have like a bit of they kind of build around it. Though apparently the sequels are continued immediately afterwards with the comics.
Okay, there's comics involved?
Yes, so that might be more interesting and a lot less more of a headache to to grasp the story on instead of having it on screen. But
yeah, I mean, from the get-go in this film, I was very confused. But I think I may have been more confused than you. I don't know, but a lot of improvisation on this, and
the way it was cut too. Actually,
the way it was cut, very confusing, and that goes a long way with the. I mean, he edited the film too, so.
It's a lot to do.
In his own words, the test screening was a disaster. So too long of a cut is what the audience said. And he had to end up cutting out a bunch of character development and maybe scenes that connected other scenes.
Right.
And that's why the dream sequences were so disjointed and they felt... You know, if that's what you were going to go for, then stick with it. But it felt like this film was being pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah, I read about you have to let go certain plot points. Like they were going to show more of like the father being who owned the bank or something like that. Then the son was taking over of some sort, and they had some sort of argument. And the reason why he leaves is because of that. And then years later, he's supposed to come back, or maybe I don't know if I don't have that right. But like significant character plots were removed from this film.
Yeah,
like removed, and you had different, and like they filmed it, and they had different actors playing these parts, and like as we said before, the original cut was around 3 hours. How could there's no way you could grasp an audience for that long for 3 hours.
It's hard.
I mean, unless it was going somewhere like,
unless you're Titanic.
Oh, well, even that.
Double VHS.
Oh boy,
release.
So was The Godfather.
Yeah.
The second Godfather.
You know. It happens, but you know, you got to have a big boat crash or a
you got to kill a bunch of people
or kill a bunch of Italians to warrant a second VHS, David.
It did.
So, on a positive note, pretty great soundtrack.
I have to give them that.
I don't know how well it was received in the 80s or 79, I guess, when it was made. Probably really only got to people in the 80s, though.
We started production in like 77, right?
I'm not sure. The film was released 79, so let's say, you know, it's the early 80s. On the cusp of the 80s. So.
Yeah, I got 77 from like what I was reading, anything about the production.
Yeah. Well, the way the actors acted in this, you'd think that they started filming in the mid-70s and just...
Maybe,
kept going. The haircuts, the lingo.
Yeah.
What the heck? What the heck? What the heck, David?
I don't know.
It was good. I liked the soundtrack a lot. And,
it was, yeah.
But I feel like that's probably... I would say that about most films in the 80s, as long as you have this vibe. It had a really good feeling to it. Like the opening shot on that funeral home, the graveyard, the music, the feel of the film was exactly what I wanted out of it.
In spite of like the way it was edited in a way, like the way it was intercut in a way, it's okay. So like that was kind of like it was weird to see that technique early on in a film, in such an old film, and to pull that off, and it wasn't pulled off properly. But you could have you'd forgive it going into it, but then when things started getting a little goofy, I think like that was just.
Yeah, well, I mean, Don was more of a comedy writer, right? Well, not necessarily comedy, but he had never made a horror film before. He just saw a horror film as like, oh, people go to see horror movies. Let's make a horror film. That'll get us money. But this is because other films had been flops up to this point,
right? But this film was heavily invested in terms of a dream he had when he was a teenager. So this was heavily based on an idea he had for a while.
Oh, okay, with those spheres?
Yeah, he imagined those spheres coming at him, and he was in this marble like mausoleum. It's a I can't say it properly. It's
mausoleum.
It's a mausoleum. Sorry, he'd be in this mausoleum being chased by these things, and that's what it was. And that's the idea he had. All this coming into an. So that's why it was. That's the reason why we saw the boy Mike just having these dreams pretty often at the beginning. It was all like resonating through a dream, and the idea came to him as a dream as well.
Okay, I wasn't sure how much of it was the dream he had. I know that at one point he wanted to adapt one of Ray Bradbury's books.
Yeah, Dune, right?
No.
Oh, no,
I
Dune-
read it as a Something Wicked This Way comes.
Oh wait, no, Dune's not the same author. My apologies. Yeah,
Yeah.
he did draw some inspiration from Dune though, but I think it was he named certain things after it. But yeah.
But I was thinking he drew some inspiration from other films, and then I realized I was like, oh no, this came out a little bit before.
Yeah, well, because it does tie well with like the films that came out at that time. Like the year before, it came out the year after Dawn of the Dead, and Halloween. So
okay,
so he definitely has that style that resonates with with Carpenter and George A. Romero, which is it's where he comes from.
Yeah,
I mean, and if you ask me, judging by with his most recent John Dies at the end, I felt he's able to adapt to today's filming techniques as opposed to what he was back then.
Yeah. See, I didn't like John Dies at the end.
I did like John Dies at the end.
I found it looked cheap.
It did look cheap. It did. It did. It had that look. It wasn't like it's not like all films today look like the way John Dies in the end looks, but it definitely the content was good.
Yeah,
it was very cynical, narcissistic in a certain way, and I enjoyed the narration of that film. Like I actually really liked it. It was something that was a good. I think that was a good example of good direction. Whereas in this film, I felt like.
Well, he had nearly 40 years 35 years to figure it out.
But think about it, John Carpenter and Romero can't direct films properly as well as they did back then. So it sounds like a Benjamin Button kind of effect on Don Cascarelli. He got better, whereas like Carpenter and Romero just got worse.
Well, what's okay? Romero, I can agree with you with 100%.
Or even Argento.
But yeah, I'm not too familiar with him though. But what about what has Carpenter done?
Well, we're thinking about like
recently.
Recently?
Yeah.
Well, there was the thing I can think of, the film I can think of most recently that he did was Cigarette Burns. It was a master of horror.
Oh, okay.
Did you watch it?
No.
I mean, it's not bad, but it's not.
It's not The Thing. It's not.
Well, The Thing was 1980. What was 19? I can't remember. 1982, something like that.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the exact.
Either way, it's that's back then. You tell me that's his last good film. Big Trouble in Little China followed afterward.
Oh no, he's made a lot of great films. I'm just saying,
his last
good 10 years, I haven't really heard of him.
No, it was only Cigarette Burns, and I think before that was probably something like Escape from L.A., and that didn't get good reviews.
Yeah. Well, hopefully he has a comeback.
Well, apparently he's trying to, but
hopefully George Romero does one last great zombie movie.
The thing is, studios are the studios aren't investing on him at all.
No, but I feel like he's good with the low budget stuff. Just he needs to work on the script a little bit. He needs to work on something that's not such a in your face social commentary, because it was like that in the original films, but now it's like he's pushing it.
Yeah, but he had a budget in the original films. That's the funny thing. He had a budget.
Yeah.
Maybe not Night of the Living Dead, but he was well established as a commercial director for Night of the Living Dead. That's the reason why Night of the Living Dead looked good for the time.
Well, the thing is, like, you're using film stock.
Exactly.
You've got some kind of budget. You need to have at least a bit of a budget to use film stock. But now you don't need to have a budget. You can just use digital, and it's going to look terrible.
I think that's what he hates about it too. Yeah? I wish if Tarantino would kind of invest on it, what, I'm going to invest on Romero's next film, and that would be awesome. That way he has his resources, and then they can make something good.
I guess, but I don't know if the ideas coming out of Romero right now
are good. Yeah, that's another point too. Yeah, because Survival of the Dead, I don't know how much was he obviously thought of the whole thing. How much was on screen? Can we judge him for? I don't know. It's a possibility that we do or that we don't, but. He's had a couple of hit or misses even during his best years. I mean, like The Crazies isn't. I did like the content, though it wasn't executed properly. Martin, you're gonna tell me Martin's a good film?
Man, I don't know. I never saw it, but I know that we're getting off the rails.
It is.
Here.
But in terms of this is like this is the light of time. This is like I think this is the more positive aspect for Don Cascarelli. I mean, like this was his first horror film, Phantasm. Yeah. I don't think he pulled it off properly. Wasn't executed properly due to the fact that he probably he put a lot on his shoulders to basically execute this film. But
he had to carry this. Whole thing.
He carried the whole thing. So I mean, considering that's pretty impressive. But obviously, it's like it's how you feel. I think most filmmakers, how they feel about their first film is not. But this led them to some success. I mean, like this is a cult favorite somehow.
Oh yeah. It's not one of those films that gets forgotten about. So it's good enough to be remembered, I'd say. And it had some striking imagery in it too. The kids lying in bed in the graveyard, and you got the hands clawing at him.
Yeah,
and, the tall man behind him. There's a lot of good visuals, and it's impressive for someone who was only the director of photography because he couldn't afford somebody.
Right.